Hello and welcome to another installment of the Wyfutbol podcast with me, Doku, and Michael Dryden. This week, in an attempt to avoid talking about Newcastle, or you can tell Dryden had the theme for this episode, we take a look at the Ronaldo sexual assault case, the initial settlement back in 2010, the leak in 2017, the current case, and recent developments. Before we start, please follow us on Twitter at @yfootball_ and subscribe with us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Acast, and YouTube. Dryden, how you doing?
Pretty awful, mate. If we flash back so it's a Saturday morning for a bit of context. Flashback to a week in the past. Last Saturday morning, I was getting ready for Portsmouth away. Sunderland were top of the league. It was a chipper mood. So Newcastle United hadn't been taken over at this point. They were still just a club in the Premier League with an average owner who were 19th. Events transpired. Went to Portsmouth. It was absolutely torrential rain, monsoon weather, got absolutely soaked, lost 4-0. Then by Thursday, Newcastle became the richest club in world football. So yeah, just not the best week for me, for my good self. But yeah, I mean, it's a bit tragic, but it's not just bad for me. It's not just sad for myself. I'm as a Sunderland fan, and a number of reasons why Sunderland in particular and their fan base are devastated by this news. Also, a bit not great for Arsenal, not great for the rest of probably the Premier League.
Yeah, I do feel for you. Thanks for also clarifying that the rewind to last Saturday was also last Saturday. That was very good. Yeah, the Newcastle thing is a bit mad. I won't touch on it too much because we are going to do an episode on it.
Mm.
I don't want you to break down into tears about it. You know what? I was actually I was walking to Tesco's yesterday and I saw this guy. Obviously, it was fairly mild yesterday evening, and he had a Newcastle scarf around his neck. And I thought, yeah, exactly. And I thought Dryden would absolutely hate this guy. He'd be in my ear being like, he's a fake. He's a fake man. He's never been to St. James's Park. He's never been to he doesn't know who Laurent Robert is. He doesn't. Those are the voices that were in my head, and I thought it was quite funny. Yeah,
He was a player, to be fair.
he was a player, Laurent Robert. Whilst we're in the intro, I'll ask you a quick question. Laurent Robert, I asked the group chat this last week. Laurent Robert or Morten Gamst Pedersen, 35 yards out.
Oh, who would I back the most?
Yeah, how'd you back the most?
I think so. When Lauren Burrs went in, they
Yeah.
were the better goals, and they were lethal. They were just outrageous goals. I think Pedersen scored more from outside the box. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I could be wrong as well.
I feel like
I went with
yeah.
Morten Gamst. I think Morten Gamst is a bit closer to our time.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Laurent Robert is a bit very early 2000s slash 2004-5, whereas Morten Gamst was probably here to nearly 2010. I think he was roughly that time. Good answer though. I back it quite a lot. So Dryden, why this episode this week?
So, I mean, you've touched on one of the major reasons that I was searching for a topic that wasn't related to Newcastle United. And don't get me wrong, I'm not just some bitter guy that is devastated their rivals become rich. There's other reasons, like, I won't dwell on it too much, but, for us, it's a massive game when we do play them. We're in the same league. So, that the rivalry seems like it's almost dead on its feet if they're going to be substantially better. Who knows? We might come back. We've got good ownership and we might be in the Premier League again, might make it a fixture out of it. Might be like an Everton Liverpool style if we can ever get that far. But even so, I mean, it's been flooding the news. So I thought for this topic anyway, yeah, we're going to do a pod on the Newcastle takeover, but I don't think right now is the right time. The press is absolutely flooded with it. But in the press as well, there's also been recent developments in the Ronaldo sexual assault case, in that a judge has recommended that the case made against the United forward be thrown out of court, which we'll go on to discuss in a short while. And I feel like despite the severity of the allegations and the level of Ronaldo's fame, I feel like this case possibly hasn't spent as much time in maybe the press as other cases of similar ilk or severity, and not necessarily enough made of it. I kind of think, and we'll go on to this, but I kind of think it's possibly due to his like almost unrivaled popularity. I think even like he's got like a godlike status in football as Messi. I don't know what the numbers would be. It's impossible to really to get a frame of reference, but he's arguably as popular, if not more. He's such a popular figure for so many reasons than Messi to an extent. I don't know. It's subjective, but he's so popular, and I wonder if that's why we don't hear as much about it. Like perhaps people side with him too much. I don't know. We can't give a verdict on a case that is so difficult to call. Yeah, even like stories about affairs we see in the press seem to get more airtime. Actual consensual affairs, obviously, they're bad as well, but they seem to get more airtime. We've had stories like with the Ched Evans incident, slash case. He went to prison for a number of years, found guilty of rape in 2012, and was acquitted in 2016. So spent a number of years in prison. We've got the recent Benjamin Mendy case, and he's due to go on trial next year. EA, interestingly, have pulled him from their FIFA games. I was going to say rightly so, but I mean, there's not been a verdict. But I mean, given the number of charges against him, it seems like it seems, I've not read into it, but it seems pretty damning. So, with fresh developments in the Ronaldo case, I thought I'd take us through the story that actually I don't think I knew loads about before, for the reasons I mentioned. Hasn't really, I think, had loads of airtime.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right. It kind of hasn't. 2009 was a very different time. I think we're going to talk about the Me Too saga quite a lot, so I won't touch on it now. But the time has changed significantly in terms of sexual assault and rape cases, and I think 2009 was a time where it really was brushed under the cover. There seems to get a lot more airtime in screening now. You mentioned Ched Evans before. That's one example, as well as Benjamin Mendy as well. Yeah, I just think times have changed. Therefore, certain cases and allegations have resurfaced, like this one, because of the developments that have involved in it. Um, Rape is a difficult topic because it's extremely hard to prove, yet sexual abuse is more common than we believe.
Mm.
And, there's a narrative which we'll talk about quite a lot, which is all about innocent until proven guilty. But when your resources are infinite in some of these cases, normally against women who aren't high powered,
Yeah.
normal civilians like us, is it really always about being innocent until being proven guilty? Because how do you win? The legal system in this country or everywhere around the world is geared towards the richer are always winning because they have the resources to do so. If I'm getting a state-run lawyer or government-run
Mm.
lawyer and I'm going against Cristiano Ronaldo, how the hell will I win?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
I don't understand how it's innocent and proven guilty. It's like yeah, but like I'm pretty sure that those types of lawyers, if Ronaldo chopped my head off and put a video about it on YouTube, I reckon he would still get away with the murder. It's like, oh yeah, no, I'm Photoshop, mate. I'm not actually there. That's probably what happened.
Mm.
So yeah, it is a very tricky one. But yeah, we'll see how that kind of progresses.
That just reminded me of after the 2004 World Euros or the World Cup, when there was that photo going around with Rooney holding Ronaldo's head, and it was like plastered all over all over like the internet, and like people wearing t-shirts with it. But yeah, you're completely right, and also like the innocence of proving guilty, kind of, which is a staple part of many legal systems. There's good reasons why that's in place, but you're talking about allegations that are typically held in private settings. The evidence is always going to be so much more difficult to attain. Like, these things happen in very, very intimate and private areas where there might not be cameras, microphones. The level of evidence is less, but the severity of the crimes are so high. So what you do just then, just start throwing out every case relating to sexual assault. What precedent does that set? So it's so challenging. So we'll go on to what the allegations actually were. So they actually surfaced around 2017, 2018. In an interview with Der Spiegel, Ronaldo was accused by Catherine Mayorga of sexually assaulting her in a Las Vegas hotel shortly actually before he moved from United to Real Madrid. So I'm not sure if that was like a United US camp, like preseason tour, hence why I was there, or it was a holiday. I don't know. Mayorga is a former school teacher and a model from Las Vegas. At the time of the sexual assault, or the alleged sexual assault, she was working as a hostess at the Rain nightclub in Las Vegas, based at the Palms Casino Resort. Ronaldo and Mayorga met at the club on 12th of June 2019 and were pictured together in several paparazzi photos. Ronaldo subsequently invited Mayorga to his suite, where she alleges the incident took place. Ronaldo's lawyers insisted there's sexual intercourse between their client, which always makes it more sinister, and Mayorga was consensual, as you'd expect them to be doing. Um, On the 13th of June, so the next day, Mayorga reported the alleged sexual abuse to the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, but initially declined to reveal either her alleged attacker's name, only identifying him as a public figure and an athlete, or actually the location where it took place, which is interesting in itself. Mayorga also underwent a rape kit examination at the local hospital later that same day, and according to an examination report seen by the Spiegel, there's a theme here. I must say that a lot of this evidence, and we'll go on to it as a reason why it might get thrown out, is coming via the Spiegel via leaks. So she does eventually give an interview, and there's a lot of primary information coming from her to back her story up. But we have to take into account the fact that a lot of this information has came from the Spiegel. But based on that information, Mayorga had seemingly suffered injuries of a nature that would be linked to these sort of cases and was prescribed antibiotics. It's interesting that she went to the police the next day, so did the right thing. Obviously, that went straight away. Underwent a rape examination, but declined to give the name of Ronaldo or the location. I wonder why that would be. Maybe is it because she thought that she wouldn't be believed? Do you know what I mean? Like, she goes to the police and say, "Oh, by the way, Cristiano Ronaldo did this in a Las Vegas hotel last night to me," was it just going to get rubbished potentially? And obviously, she's so vulnerable in that state at that time. So, who knows what's going on in her mind? But I thought it was it's an interesting point.
Yeah, it's extremely sad, as I said earlier, the narrative always sides with the sportsman. The women are often portrayed as money grabbing, attention seeking
Mm.
characters. And it's very difficult because 2009 was a very different time. So because a lot of people have always gone back to, saying, oh, like, why was not more of it made then? It's like, well, what? Why would you want to get like to go against some of these celebrities with all the internet trolls that existed all the way back then? It's extremely
Mm.
difficult, you know. It's yeah, it's brave for her to have stepped forward now. We'll touch on the flaws in her coming forward now compared to as she did at that time. But
Yeah.
2009 is a very, very different time. I think people really
Mm.
do forget that. Um, it's not easy, and yeah, the injuries she suffered sound terrible. Obviously, these can all be confirmed as well. So yeah, I assume it must have been very shaken by the ordeal as well, which is sad to see and sad to read.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next kind of development in that case was basically linked to it, like an out of court settlement. Mayorga subsequently hired a lawyer who advised reaching an out of court settlement rather than pressing criminal charges. As part of the process which followed, the Spiegel claims that Ronaldo's lawyers had their client answer a questionnaire, and allegedly um, part of his answers, he's quoted as saying that Mayorga had said no and stop several times, and that he apologized to her afterwards. Again, these are all coming from the Spiegel and leaks, so they have to be taken with some pinch of salt. We can't verify them ourselves, so we can't cast too much judgment. Ronaldo's lawyers said in 2018 that the documents in question were stolen by hackers and altered and/or completely fabricated. In January 2010, so going back to the time of the settlement, mediation between Ronaldo and Mayorga's legal teams resulted in the two parties reaching a non-disclosure agreement. Ronaldo settled to pay $375,000 to Mayorga, who in return could not publicly discuss the allegations. And at this point, so 2010, the allegations remained under the surface. No one was aware of them, aside from Ronaldo, Mayorga, and the legal teams. I always find it interesting and I get there's reasons why, when Ronaldo denies everything, but then would then settle the case. I know he's got a lot of fortune at stake. I know his reputation's at stake. And as I said before, those incidents can go both ways. Whoever is the innocent party, it's so often to prove that they're innocent. If it's actually Ronaldo at fault, it's hard for the woman to actually prove that. If it's the woman who's actually is doing something immoral and going after his wealth or whatever, which is the stigma, as you mentioned. Again, it's so difficult to prove that isn't the case. So yeah, it's just interesting when they pay to settle cases that they are innocent in.
Yeah, selling out of court, doesn't look good for both parties. It's a tough one because when you have infinite amounts of money, it's like, oh, because it can't be asked at the court case. It's like, come on,
Mm,
you're not doing much of the work, and if you're as innocent as you say you are, you're going to be cleared, aren't you? So
mm,
rape is very hard to prove. So this isn't murder where it's like all like pedophilia or something. Like this is like normally extremely hard to prove and very in favor of the man or male. You could argue, oh, I don't want the publicity. Football doesn't care. Ronaldo doesn't care. Even Ronaldo, then he was the most expensive player in the world, was he not? People,
mm,
people don't care. You like to think, oh, we won't buy shirts at Real Madrid. People don't care. They literally do.
mm,
Football fans, football itself, they do not care. Real Madrid won't care. Man United won't care. The fans, like 2% of fans will care, and they weren't Ronaldo fans or Real Madrid fans or Man United fans anyway. People just do not care like that. So for him to settle up court, I think makes him look pretty suspicious, to be honest. I mean, he has all the finances in the world, so I don't understand why he would do that. I do get, oh, he wants it gone away quickly, but that hush hush element kind of screams, okay, I may not be guilty of what I'm being accused of, but I've done something wrong, and that
mm,
something wrong is what you should be on trial for, because some of these quotes that you put in here about saying no and stop, and he later apologized, and how he's had different versions of the truth, all screams guilty. The amount
mm,
paid, life changing amounts to anyone, really. £270,000. I'm sure there's people listening who maybe earn more than that in a year. That's unlikely. I
mm.
don't know why I said that, but it's but but the point is, it's a life changing amount to anyone that buys you a house, deposit, whatever, rent, holiday, whatever you want to do. So I think, yeah, for him to put that much money up, yeah, it doesn't sit quite right with me.
And it's peanuts to him though as well. So I mean,
Exactly.
but it's the precedent it sets because if he, then going forward can just know that he can do what he wants and pay 200K to get away from it, then that's just, that's not how society should work. And I do wonder with like the Mendy case. Again, I don't know much about it. I can't cast any aspersions really on the Mendy case currently. If he gets completely acquitted, I'd be interested to see like what the reaction is compared to Ronaldo because, as I said, Ronaldo's hyper popular. It's almost like when people love a star, they seem to trust them and they seem to think that they can do no wrong. It'd be interesting to see. Mendy's not that similar sort of player. He's left back at City, who by and large as a player is not really, he's doing what he did well for himself, but he's not um, become a star in his own right. So it'll be interesting to see like how that pans out if he does get acquitted. But again, I don't know what the ins and outs are of that case, and judging by the number of allegations, it looks pretty damning. So how did the allegations come out? So if we fast forward back to 2017. Um, so the allegations against Ronaldo surfaced in April 2017 based on documents uncovered and supplied to Der Spiegel by Football League's European Investigations Project. Mayorga was anonymized as Susan K in the leaked information. Initially, Ronaldo's lawyers dismissed the story as journalistic fiction, but in September 2018, Mayorga waived her anonymity. Well said on a Saturday morning. Um, as Susan Kay and came forward in a detailed interview with Der Spiegel. Ronaldo's lawyers later acknowledged the existence of the non-disclosure agreement, but insisted that it was by no means a confession of guilt. Mayorga then hired new lawyers, claiming she had suffered from PTSD and had been inspired by the Me Too movement, hence why she came out. Again, I'm not really too sure. She signed a non-disclosure agreement, but then came out and disclosed it. So I don't know if it was because it is roughly around 10 years afterwards if it expired, but I don't really understand how that works, to be honest,
Yeah.
because because we'll go on to why she is now unable or potentially able to um, basically put another case against Ronaldo. So this might be linked to that. So Ronaldo's response: I firmly deny the accusations being issued against me. Rape is an abominable crime that goes against everything that I am and believe in. Keen as I may be to clear my name, I refuse to feed the media spectacle created by people seeking to promote themselves at my expense. He relayed a similar message before a United v Juventus Champions League tie in October 2018. And there was also like an Instagram video at the time where he's just like on doing a selfie for like 10 seconds, just basically saying how people are out to get him for his name and stuff like that. Doesn't actually deny it or really reference it too much in the film or like the video, but like kind of basically says, this person's just trying to use my name for publicity and fame. Um, it's quite a bizarre video, really. You'd think it'd be a bit more dismissive.
It's just such stupid narrative. Why the hell? Look, the thing is with this Ronaldo rape issue, obviously they said the sex was consensual, fine. Trying to use my name. Do you know the number of trolls that someone will have on I would say an hourly basis when it first came out, when she came back in whatever year that was, the amount of abuse, death threats she's going to receive since, name being dragged down by the media, people not believing her, people believing what Ronaldo said should be vilified. It's not worth her time. Like it
Mm,
just isn't. Like people think she needs more money. It's like you really look. I don't. The world is too black and white for people. People think, okay, rape is unlikely to be proved, right? So I'm going to go all the way to court to try and prove Ronaldo guilty of rape. This is if she lied. I'm going to prove that Ronaldo raped me or whatever, or sexually assaulted me, even though I'm very unlikely to win. I'm willing to drag my name through the media circus where I'm going to be vilified. I'm going to get abused. I'm going to get trolls. I'm going to get Ronaldo calling me a liar when it's
mm,
really, really unlikely I'm going to win anyway. It's like, and then you're saying, okay, would Ronaldo settle out of court again? Which is what some people said. Why would he do that twice? I think this is very much about trying to get a conviction on a man who has done something wrong. He may not have done something wrong, for the full picture, but he definitely has done. I mean, the allegation you mentioned earlier kind of dictate that. He's relayed messages where he hasn't outright dismissed it, and he's pandered to the crowd of this narrative. It just makes me so angry where it's like, yeah, she's trying to use my name. It's like the allegations are so dark. She's not saying you like pushed her over on the street. It's like
mm,
it's rape, and that is extremely serious. But as I said, when you're as big as Cristiano Ronaldo, he could chop my head off and he'd get away with murder. So,
mm. Yeah, I mean we should say that we the allegations made and the evidence that was brought forward are largely due to leaks. They're not verified. I mean,
true.
so we shouldn't really cast aspersions. However, it's just it's the narrative of the case, isn't it? It's like this has been alleged. You can imagine him being in Las Vegas, and you can imagine him being in that scenario, with a woman. Um, I don't know if alcohol would have been involved, but you can imagine like the scenario of a footballer, alcohol, whatever else in the mix with a girl. These people are very famous. They've been not used to being told that they give told no, told they can't do something. So if he did take someone back like her, and she was very reluctant to go forward with anything. How would someone like Ronaldo react? I don't know him personally. It's maybe we shouldn't make those kind of inferences, but my kind of it's almost like a stereotype of footballers, but also any sportsman or famous musician or famous artist or someone a celebrity in the limelight. They're used to being liked, told yes all the time. So you kind of can imagine this scenario happening. I don't think, as you said, people are I doubt I doubt he's attacked her, with weapons and stuff like that. But there's definitely levels of it.
Mm,
It's not always the extreme. There is levels to it, as you mentioned. Like he might not have done something that he perceived or didn't intend to do anything that was malicious at the time, but is seemingly or potentially carried something out that has really affected someone. So, um, yeah. So it does. I think we have our opinions on it, and it sounds like from the court settlement that he may have done something that he shouldn't have done. Um, but we can't. I don't know. We can't really cast a verdict. Um, so the current slash recent developments that came to light. So, um, after Mayoga came out, so the police investigation initially was kind of it couldn't really go forward at the time because she didn't disclose who it was or the location, so the police couldn't really investigate it. As you kind of, was kind of fair enough. But the Las Vegas police reopened the criminal case at the end of 2018 and requested Italian authorities take a DNA sample um, of Ronaldo in January 2019. So obviously, this is when he's at Juventus. However, Las Vegas prosecutors confirmed later in the year that Ronaldo would not face criminal charges as the allegations could not be proven beyond reasonable doubt. Again, with these sort of cases, that is often difficult. Clark County District Attorney Steve Wolfson said that as Mayorga did not initially name her attacker or specify the location, it was the authorities had been unable to conduct any meaningful investigation. Again, I do think that sounds, you know, it does sound like it'd be quite difficult to investigate a case like this where you're trying to get DNA 10 years after the event. So that kind of, I think it's in the mix of why this was not ever proceeded on the criminal level. In terms of the civil case, so Mayorga's legal team is aiming to overturn the out-of-court settlement that was made in 2010 on the grounds that she was mentally unfit to agree to its terms at the time. Mayorga, in her interview with Der Spiegel, said that she suffers from learning disabilities, which her lawyers said were not accounted for during the 2010 mediation. So it's a new lawyer saying that. So a date is yet to be set, largely, I think, probably because of coronavirus, is why it's been delayed, around whether Mayorga lacked the mental capacity when entering into the agreement. And it was reported by the Mirror at the beginning of this year that Mayorga is claiming £56.5 million in damages from Ronaldo for the incident. Ronaldo's lawyers, again, asked for the case to be dismissed, arguing that the Football League documents are stolen, so shouldn't be used as evidence. And the case has actually been recently reviewed by a magistrate judge, Daniel Albrecht, who's not actually the actual judge who's going to be giving the verdict over whether or not she was fit to basically accept the settlement in 2010, or will not be given the verdict on the trial if it does go ahead, or case against Ronaldo. But he recommends the case is actually going to be dropped, given some of the evidence was based on leaked communications. So his kind of a quote from him was kind of that, it will be an incredible shame that someone's case gets thrown out because of the actions of their lawyers, basically saying her new lawyers are incompetent because they're relying on leaked evidence, which kind of goes back to your point that she's got lawyers that are seemingly not competent enough to perform the case. Although if that is the only evidence that they're relying on, it kind of makes you think, is there what else can they go off? Because again, they're trying to fight a case 10 years after the event, so the evidence they have is quite thin. So, but it looks like it's going to get kicked out for those reasons.
The one he actually mentioned is mad. I think I'm not sure how reliable it is. Hold tight, John Cross of the
Mm.
Mirror, top Arsenal reporter though. Good guy.
Thanks.
But you are but you are right. Trying to prove a case 10 years later, 10 years later is really really difficult, and there are rules to the court of law. As much as I champion women coming forward and trying to bring down rich, powerful men that think they can get away with everything, there are issues with this. Obviously, the leaks being illegally obtained or
Mm.
not even being factual, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
We don't know that for sure. What we do know, obviously, that they did meet, and there is an official account which said that, well, which has one different versions of Ronaldo's story, but also that they were together at some point in time, and then that's where it gets very murky. I personally think for someone like Ronaldo, he typifies or this celebrity that gets his own way all the time, because he would do. That's something that I can just assume because
Mm.
he's Cristiano Ronaldo. He can walk into a shop. You could walk into a vegan shop and ask for a steak and get a steak. Do you know what I mean? That's just. Do you know what I mean? That's how big he is. I would assume that's what would happen because he's Cristiano Ronaldo.
Mm.
Um, I hope it's a wake up call to elite sportsmen. I think it has been in terms of the reaction. Again, I'll say again, 2009 was a very different time. I think that now the Me Too saga has meant that these cases, the weighing scales are tipped more in the favor, or are tipping more towards the side of the people that have been attacked, basically. Whereas before it was so heavily one sided that it was unlikely
Mm.
you would ever win. Personally, I think Ronaldo is guilty of something, but you're looking at the evidence of what you just said in the current developments. I'm not surprised it's going to be thrown out, nor do I disagree with it, because there's loads of times, right, where you have a feeling that someone is guilty, but can you physically prove that? There has to be rules and things to follow in court, and I think, unfortunately, due to the age of the case, Ronaldo should be in the clear, really.
Yeah, I think he will be. And I mean, the legal structure is there to protect people and to give justice. And I mean, um, that's what Daniel Albrecht was saying, the magistrate judge that gave like kind of a review of the case. Even though it's a real shame that she's going to have what could be a valid case thrown out for potentially incompetence from her lawyers, or because she hasn't got enough evidence, because some of it was leaked and is not could potentially not be factual. Um, you still have to. He's basically saying you still have to upend or upheld the the legal system. You can't just then go around it for certain cases. So it's likely to be thrown out for that reason. Um, so just to end on, I mean, we touched on quite a lot of this already about footballers generally and allegations of these kind of this nature. They're always contentious, as we discussed. It's very difficult to prove either way. If someone is making an accusation, how does that person defend themselves? Often, how if that person is making an accusation, how often do they actually be able to prosecute? But it just depends on how the evidence is weighed. The fact that she took a rape kit examination and there was proven to be injuries is the most damning part of evidence here. Um, it's fairly clear that the actual narrative up until they got into the suite was correct. He was in Las Vegas. She was too. They were together. They went back. She's then got injuries off the back of that. So seemingly something's happened. Um, so that is the evidence that I think could be more damning. The league's less so. But as you said, I mean, footballers, sportsmen generally, celebrities, they are used to getting what they want. But then they also are wealthy, and their reputations largely dictate their status. So I don't, judging by the narrative, I don't think Mayoga's just made this up. But I can see, well, it would be very callous, and it's a very, very serious crime as well. Let's not forget, for someone to actually make something like this up. But someone like Ronaldo would be a kind of prime target. As you said, he's got expensive lawyers. It's difficult to prove, but that he'll probably pay a few £100,000 to get out of the case. So if you are that person making that false accusation, again, not saying that's Morgan doing that now, then he is the sort of person that will be targeted. So you can see why they have things on the line. That being said, to finish, from me anyway, I do not have sympathy. I don't care if Ronaldo's acquitted and this goes away forever. I do not have sympathy for him. I don't have sympathy for Ched Evans. Ched Evans spent Some people do. Ched Evans spent 4 years in prison, okay, and he was acquitted. By law, he is acquitted, and so I'm not saying he raped anyone. He's by law, he's innocent, and I stand by that. I do not sympathise with him though that he ended up in that situation. He went back with a friend to a hotel with a girl. There's alcohol involved. Fair enough, they were drinking alcohol. The pair of them might have been intoxicated as well. She was intoxicated as well. He's put himself in that situation where either something can happen, like will actually happen, or everyone's intoxicated or doesn't remember what happened. She's feeling like something happened. It may have happened, may have not. Then something comes out, and I do not sympathise because you need to be more careful. Be more careful that you're not doing something that is under the influence of alcohol that is actually going to hurt someone, which could have happened in Mayoga's case and could have happened in Ched Evans' case. But even if you don't do anything to hurt anyone and your actions are so pure in that moment, even with the influence of alcohol, you're still putting yourself in a situation where this could happen, where you're going to end up in with allegations for whatever reason. And I just do not have sympathy for any of these footballers doing that. We see like even the thing with like Dele Alli, that video that got leaked of him with some girls. That again, that was all innocent. This thing about Mason Greenwood and Phil Foden, it's seemingly innocent, but it's just not the trail you want to be going down as a footballer, and you need to just just obviously don't act so foolishly and so recklessly, and treat women with respect. That is the main thing. But if you are, young and going out and drinking and meeting people, it is a very unpredictable environment at times. Just be careful. Like, be careful what you're doing. Don't put yourself in stupid situations because that's what these people are doing. So I have no sympathy.
Yeah, I think the my takeaway is that innocent until proven guilty is always the narrative, but rape is extremely hard to prove. So these footballers and sportsmen have to be very, very wise. I mean, there is an element to there will always be people that make up these allegations, but I don't know. Because it's so hard to prove. I don't know how many footballers would want to settle out of court.
Mm,
I do think, yeah. I mean, they have the money to make it go away quickly, but then also it's your reputation. Because people like me are on this podcast now talking about you settling out of court, and there's always that doubt
mm,
around you. Whereas if you definitively didn't do anything wrong, then I'll definitely decide to fight that in court. I think there is definitely an element of this grey area, right, of consensual sex, and if you did have sex with someone, they turn around and said you raped them, then that could be quite difficult. You
mm.
don't know, as you said, what goes on behind closed doors. But yeah, you're right. You have to be very aware of sportsmen because you know there are people looking to potentially use you for what you have in a way, but also you're in the limelight. It's not even necessarily about whether people lie or not. It's just that you have to be very, very careful anyway.
Yeah.
There's probably loads of borderline cases of rape allegations where women don't come forward, even though they definitely should. But then when you're a sportsman, that's amplified because of the profile. It's amplified because of the narrative of these guys always get away with it. So you have to be more aware. And I think I'm glad to see the likes of Benjamin Mendy being reprimanded, although I'm unhappy at how City took so long to do that on their side.
Mm.
We've seen Basuma got arrested on sexual assault. I think that's maybe gone away
Yes.
very
Yeah.
recently. I do think the Me Too issue or saga, sorry, has caused a shift where more and more people are coming forward and they're being, I wouldn't say they're being believed more, but the scales have tipped more in their favor. Whereas before it was just a case of if you're rich, essentially you can do whatever and get away with whatever, which is completely and entirely wrong. So it'll be interesting to see how these cases go in the future. We've got Sigurdsson as well on paedophilia, which is slightly different. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what sentences these guys get because I think what MeToo's done is just raised awareness. What it's actually done is he's gone to prison, and that is the big change. The change isn't
Mm.
so much awareness because okay, imagine if Ronaldo was guilty and he got like a suspended sentence and it's like, oh, we're all aware now. The fact of the matter is he needs to be reprimanded. And I think Me
Mm.
Too with Harvey Weinstein has shown, oh, you can be a millionaire, he maybe even a billionaire, I'm not sure, and actually go to prison. That's the thing,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah,
not
definitely.
it's not this, oh, we've slapped him on the wrist and oh, we're now aware. It's will he actually suffer the consequences? You even seen it with R. Kelly, who's about to be sentenced. What we're now seeing is very,
Mm.
very powerful men actually being sentenced and serving time, which I think is a positive step in the right direction.
Yeah, definitely. Because even if it ends up being 54.5 million, the case. I know that'll be the civil case. Um, but I mean, he or 56.5. He can. He'll make that back in a couple of seasons. So it's still a significant amount of money for him or for anyone. But yeah, he'll make that money back, and realistically, his life will be unaffected. But the life of the other person is affected forever. So
Well, I think we'll wrap it up there. So thank you, John, for the really good pod this week. Um, it was a bit of a switch up. Didn't do the one on Newcastle. Not surprised too fair with your ties to
mm.
Sunderland, the biggest club in the Northeast. So yeah, thank you for doing the research on that.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think you needed that. So thanks for doing the
Thank you.
research on that one. And yeah, tune in next time, guys, and we'll see you soon.
Cheers, guys. See ya.